each headset. There we go. Now you guys can hear me. Okay, now you guys can hear me just fine. Good, I'm glad that we got that fixed and figured out. Okay, now we can get on the road. There we go. Now you guys can hear me. Okay, so let's get a move on. Okay, Mr. Hurst always comes first. Ha, I like that. It rhymes. I rhymed, guys. I'm a poet, and I know it. Alright, let's take a look here. Mr. Hurst always comes first. He's the man of the house. The first focus was his caffeine intake. Mr. Hurst thrived on coffee, but too jittery. Jittery. I like that. It's that coffee. Coffee makes you jittery, guys. Jittery. Okay, I've got this nice thing of English words that we need to make sure that we throw in there. To the loo. British words are so much fun, guys. I really would enjoy getting to the point where there were just British words. Live chat. Should I say something in live chat? Probably. Come right with me. Yay! That's good. To the loo. The loo. Now, first bit focus was his caffeine intake. Mr. Hurst thrived on coffee, but he never stopped drinking it. In order to ensure he wasn't too jittery and wasn't constantly traveling back and forth to the loo, I had to curve drinking habits. The average cup of coffee holds do 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 do. Now, you folks might not know this, but I do because I did my research, which you should do if you're writing. The average cup of coffee is 95 milligrams of caffeine. Excuse me. Did not mean to do that. Even so, the cups average around 95 milligrams of caffeine. Now, anything... We already used jittery, so we'll use shaky. Thus, ten, 2, 4, and his final cup as he wrapped up the workday around 7 p.m. So how'd I change his habits? Simple. I switched his I switched his 10 and 7 p.m. coffee to decaf. Without his knowledge. Did he ever? Of course not. Of course he didn't suspect anything. Why would he? Why would he suspect anything? That's such a silly idea. No, of course he didn't. Mr. Hurst wouldn't suspect anything because Mr. Hurst was a gentleman on the go. He more inhaled his coffee than ever actually drinking it. Slushing the liquid back before jumping on a Ba, 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 ba. Let's just think for a moment, gentlemen. Think. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said gentlemen. Obviously, ladies can be in here too. Ladies. Hmm. Okay. I think I've got an idea. Before jumping on, Alright, I like where we're headed. I don't know. Butters? 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 No, it's definitely Butler. What? Oh, Butler has... What the heck have I done? Have I seriously misspelled Butler? It's only one T. One of you should have caught that. One of you should have told me. My goodness. Okay. We are going to save, but we are going to change the name to proper Butler. Yes, that's much better, gentlemen. Much better. Okay. That's what sets apart the good butlers from the truly great butlers. From the truly great butlers. Wahahaha. Okay. Alright. That's what sets apart the good butlers from the great butlers, if I do say so myself. And you know I do. Okay. The good butlers to the truly great butlers. Ha ha ha, Butler. Ha ha ha. Best for your master without them even knowing what you're doing. Okay. To forever serve your master, his family, and do needs to be done. That's pretty wordy. We're gonna end up editing that out later. And kept him at the peak. The peak of health. Made sure his shoes were polished, that he was always on time, and kept him at the peak of health. At the peak of productivity. He was always on time and kept. Let's take out him. And kept at the peak of productivity. It's keeping at the peak of productivity that is truly difficult at times. To that end, I led him in meditation, yoga, and ensured it's incredibly important that Mr. Hurst remain Hmm. It's incredibly important that Mr. Hurst remain under This is one of the greatest perks of being a butler. Queasiness. Oh, goodness. Alright, hang on. I'm looking for a specific word, and I am drawing a blank. Oh, I'm not even close. I love when word is just... Yeah, sorry, you're so far from the word that we can't even help you. You get to travel, see sights you've only read of, and enjoy all manner of exotic cuisine. Now we're cooking with Crisco. Now we're talking. Do 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 do. Whew, excuse me. Enjoy all manner of exotic cuisine. Enjoy all manner of exotic cuisine. Well, if you're still watching, you're enjoying my creative process as I write, go ahead and click that subscribe button, follow, and feel free to like and comment and share with other people. Oh my goodness. This is taking a little longer than it should. Of course, it did mean long stretches without seeing the rest of the Hearst clan. I like the C. I like it capitalized. I'm gonna leave it. Gonna leave it. Okay. Of course, it did mean long stretches without seeing the rest of the Hearst clan. Okay. Didn't mean long stretches without seeing the rest of the Hearst clan. Not seeing her was tantamount to torture. It's pretty good. I like that. Tantamount to torture. I'm going to leave it. Just like that. That's not getting taken out in the editing process. Tantamount to torture. I keep getting messages. Oh my gosh. Alright. Don't you just want to buy one of these horses and name him Dog? Yes. That horse should be named Dog. Oh, I like it. Okay. Not seeing her was tantamount to torture. The torture of being tantamount to torture. Okay. We are going to think about this for a second. We're going to think about this for a long second now. What's an expensive perfume? Let's Google this. Most expensive perfume. Armani Code Absolute Gold Perfume. Perfume. Lingered upon. Her smile. Her smile. Smart eyes. Sharp heels. And the legs those heels supported were all missed. Were all particularly missed. We're all. The smell of her Armani Code Absolute Gold perfume lingered upon one of my handkerchiefs. 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 It doesn't look right, but I'm sure it is. Yep, handkerchief. That is right. It's such a weird word to actually look at, because it looks like my hand and a chief. Hand chief. Chief of all hands. Smell of her Armani Code Absolute Gold perfume lingered upon one of my handkerchiefs. And was a source of reprieve from my longing. And gave me some reprieve from my longing. I think Mr. Hurst All right, let's think about this real quick. The type of women that Mr. Hurst sleeps with. They were which is why I wasn't surprised when I got a phone call from a Miss Elizabeth. This slighted girl. Slighted girl. Now this slighted girl was messaging me alongside a stream of photos. Alongside a stream of photos. Depicting am I not spelling coitus right? Another word for sex is coitus. Okay, hang on. Coitus. That's how you spell it. So close. Coitus. Through several stages of coitus. Now we have it. Depicting herself and Mr. Hurst throughout several stages of coitus. She'd been cut off from her cash cow. And now she'd been cut off from her cash cow, and now was turn in the insurance policy. Usually it's not like she was the first woman to or two was simply a drop in the bucket. I'd pay, have them sign a non-disclosure agreement, have them sign an ironclad. I'd pay, have them sign an ironclad contract saying that if they ever breathed the word Russian coal mine. I am not on a good streak when it comes to spelling today. Okay, coal. I need to stop yawning. I really do. After accepting the money, we don't them and send them to a Russian coal mine. Coal mine to the end of their days. Unfortunately. Twitter painted. She wanted him to leave his family in the lurch. And The humiliation alone, how could she ever show her face to any respectable? Gosh dang it, do I want it in first person or not? Sorry, I had a little sniffles. After all, I'm the family butler. Here, let's take a look at these words. These are the English words for any English character. We have fit, loo, dodgy, proper, knackered, quid, skint, skiver, snog, cheers, naff, to sack off, banter, gutted, pissed, par, to par off an active dismissal, melt, cheeky, to mug off, mate, rubbish, legate, kip, gutted, bird, gander, daft, lost, posh, hunky, bullocks, bugger all, bloody, off your trolley, off your trolley, off your trolley, trolley, off your trolley, trolley, off your trolley, off your trolley, yeah. I like that. No, I had to deal with this quietly. After all, I'm the family butler. Now, let's take a look here. 10 best new rifles, gentlemen and ladies. If you're a lady who's watching, I just said gentlemen. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to assume your gender. Ladies and gentlemen. There we go. Oh, wait. That's only 2 genders. Hang on. Ladies, gentlemen, and other. Other's not offensive, right? That's kind of a catch-all. Yeah. I'm going to say other. Ladies, gentlemen, and other. I am super woke. Here we have it. Browning X-Bolt Mountain Pro Tungsten Burnt Bronze. Hang on. Not the estate. I'm not going to have her meet at the estate. That's silly. It should be... No, I mean, I guess it should be. As I pulled back and forward, loading a bullet. Place. Deniability. Oh my gosh. Like an animal for proper deniability. Call the authorities. Of course, this would be written off as an accident. Now then, let's see. No, just the moose. When killing a person on accident, the place to aim was the lungs. Just like the moose. When killing a person on accident, the place to aim was the lungs. The center of the lungs rests between the 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Center of the lungs rests between the third and fourth rib. About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About 7 inches One, 2, 3, 4. About 5 inches below the base of neck. Huh. Slutty. Tramp like her. Hussy. I'm sure her family and friends used such dignified name. They likely called her Liz. The hussy. I'm using slut a lot. Sex worker. A bunch of other important stuff in the middle of her torso. Through her lungs. I had to wait for her to turn sideways. I had to wait for her to turn sideways just right. The bullet would travel between her ribs, through both her lungs, along with a bunch of other important stuff in the middle of her torso, and exit out the other side. And exit out the other side. There would be no doubt this single shot would result in her death. As she turned just right. I slowly pulled back the metal trigger. Coming to my feet. Coming to my feet. Okay, let's think for a second. Let's get the tablet out. Let's get the tablet out. Okay, let's see here. It was as much a surprise to me as it was to that corner girl, Liz. Coming to my feet, I smiled. I like that ending. I am the butler. Alright, let's go through the editing process now. Oh, 11 pages, an 11-page story. Let's save, just in case something crazy happens. Let's read it all out, shall we? A manservant is a man who is taught to serve. There are many types of manservants within a proper household. A footman is trained in the ways of domestic servitude. He waits tables, serves in travel, and hops to where required. He waits tables, serves in travel, and hops to where he's required. Back in the older century, they would run alongside the carriages to ensure its path was clear of obstacles such as ditches or tree roots. He would even run miles ahead of the carriage to proper destinations for his lord's arrival. Today, footmen are not required to run so, and thus are much fatter. Footmen. Hallboy was a manservant of a younger age. He was named such because the boy often slept in the outer halls. This boy had the duties that were most disagreeable within the house. Much like a dog to kick, the boy was there to be yelled at and made to do what others wished not. I, of course, am using the past tense because in our modern 21st century, child labor would never allow such a position to exist. Shame. The houseman is a servant who is below the footman. Below the footman, but above the hallboy. He is much like the footman, but he lacks the proper decorum and training to allow him within the dining room. The upper class deserve to eat without any unpleasant sights to upset their appetites. These are the three main positions of the manservants. Of course, a truly high-class household will also have a chauffeur, valet, and boot boy that is simply called boots. A maid is a woman who is taught to serve. Take off the S there, gentlemen. Take it off. Don't allow it. A maid is a woman who is taught to serve. The duties of a maid, housemaid, or maidservant are extensive. They are the primary source of cleanliness within the household. At any time, a maid can be seen mopping, vacuuming, sweeping, washing carpets, taking care of the linens, or wiping down the kitchen. A true lord requires his castle to look emasculate. Hang on. Must look immaculate. Yep, that's right. I am right. Immaculate. And this starts and ends with the maids. I suppose that's why there's such a modern fetish surrounding the maid holding a feather duster. She's the embodiment of female servitude for the master's house. She is the embodiment of female servitude for the master's house. Chambermaid, housemaid, kitchen maid, laundry maid, nursemaid, parlor maid. Because parlor is a word by itself, yeah? Parlor. I like the U. It looks more professional. Parlor maid, scullery maid, lady's maid, and still room maid must, of course, have someone to report to. The head housemaid or the senior housemaid give instructions to the other female staff members and keep them all moving in the correct direction. Correct manner of things. That sounds good, but I feel like we say manner a lot in this one. Correct direction of things. Keep them all moving in the correct manner of things. No, I'm going to leave it. Manner of things sounds good. I, however, report to no one. I, however, report to no one. I'm not a man or a woman who was taught to serve. Service is in my heart. It flows through my blood and maintains a constant home within my mind. I breathe my Lord's will, just as my Father and his... I breathe my Lord's will, comma, just as my father and his father and his father before him. I am a man of my family, and my family breeds butlers. Make no mistake, a butler is the head of the household. I am in charge of the hiring. I am in charge of the firing. I set the budget for the estate and ensure all things run in a smooth fashion. I set the budget for the house and ensure all things run in... And I ensure... I set the budget for the house and ensure all things run in a smooth fashion. I serve, but I am no mere servant. Other servants listen when I shout. When I speak. And that is a good distinction. Speak instead of shout. Why? Because Butler Benson Belvedere has no need to shout. He is a gentleman, and as such, he does gentlemanly things. Ugh. My ears are going, people. Okay. Let's focus up. I need some water. Of course, the added responsibility has its downfalls. I am held accountable when anything goes wrong. Not that I'd have it any other way, mind you. Not that I'd have it any other way, mind you. If the household shortcomings are my fault, then its achievements are mine to take credit for. The emasculate change back to emasculate. No. The emasculate state of the house, the ship-shape order in which the staff is run, the very shine of the polished silver is all mine to feel pride in, is all mine to take pride in. The very shine of the polished silver is all mine to take pride in. I take credit for everything because I am accountable for anything. And through proxy, everything gets done because of me. But just because service is in one's heart doesn't mean he can simply begin butlering. 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 Butlering? Butlering. Butlering. Yep, butlering. That's right. For one to butlering. For one to buttle properly, he must undergo extensive training. I myself lived, trained, and breathed service in the Netherlands. Anyone who is who's a master of the art must go to the Netherlands and put in his time at the International Butler Butler. God, good golly. International Butler Academy. 80,000 square feet, 135 rooms, and every inch is dedicated to the sole pursuit of crafting boys into men who take part in the most honorable of professions. There I learned how to account for every pen in the household. I stood at attention, walked straight with a book on my head while carrying dishes, and polished silver until my fingernails bled. Until my fingers bled. And polished silver until my fingers bled. Every minute I was in love, knowing that I had a purpose, a noble purpose. I'd soon be of service, bettering my master's life and enriching it in priceless ways. Of course, simply training at the academy wasn't good enough. No, I would be top tier, rising to any standards. Of course, there were chefs for cooking, so baking classes were of no use. There were linguists for translation. Some native English tongue was sufficient. Tutors would take care of any education. Tutors would take care of any educational needs. Tutors would take care of any educational needs for the children, so additional schooling in academics would be superfluous. Is that the right word to put there? Superfluous? Yeah, I'm gonna stick with it. What I needed was ways to make myself of use. Dare I say it? What I needed was ways to make myself of use. Period. Dare I say indispensable to my future employer. I'd become, dare I say, indispensable. I'd become, dare I say, indispensable to my future employer. To that end, I began martial arts training. I paid private companies to run me harder than any special forces unit, than any special forces member, than any special forces soldier. I stood beside professionals, pulled my trigger. I stood beside professionals and pulled my trigger. I pulled it over and over again. I pulled it over and over again. I pulled it over and over again until I was as accurate as the greatest marksman. With my Browning X-Bolt Mountain Pro tungsten rifle shining in its burnt bronze color, I was prepared to eliminate any threat to the family I served. I would be a shield or a weapon to whoever I ended up working for, gladly taking a bullet if that was required. That's what was required. Just kind of cleans it up, taking a few words out here and there. Gladly taking a bullet if that's what was required. I'll admit, the thought of doing so was daunting, but those worries soon melted away as I was found. But those worries soon melted away as I found my Mr. Hart. But those worries soon melted away as I found Mr. Hurst. I'll admit, I was apprehensive at first. Him being American and all. At the beginning, I greatly desired to stay in England. Alas, America is where the money is, and finding the multi-millionaire who started his Butler off at 150,000 a year was a godsend. The prospect was so grand it was clear Mr. Hurst was no skint. He wanted the best, and I was happy to provide just that. At first I was shaking in my boots at the prospect of being turned away from the position. Thankfully, I'm British, and Americans love a classic accent in those who buttle for them. Thankfully, I'm British. Thankfully, I'm British. Thankfully, I'm British. Americans love a classic accent and those who buttle for them. Soon I was at the estate, enjoying taking care of the most magnificent mansion I had ever laid eyes on. Given a week of work, I proved I was not one to slack off. I had no time for rubbish. I had no time for rubbish. Period. I don't know why I put so many commas in. Periods. Periods are the way of the future. If you want good writing advice, stay away from commas. People don't like long sentences. I had no time for rubbish. I had a household to make the most posh. I had a household to make the most posh of them all. Soon, under my supervision, the Hurst house was running tip-top, rivaling Buckingham Palace, if I dare toot my own horn. I just love how Benson Belvedere speaks. I'm Butler Benson Belvedere. After all, I am Butler. I am Butler Benson Belvedere. After all, at first I was shaking in my boots at the prospect of being turned away from the position. Thankfully, I'm British. Americans love a classic accent and those who buttle for them. Soon I was at the estate, enjoying taking care of the most magnificent mansion I'd ever laid eyes on. Given a week of work, I proved I was not one to slack off. I had no time for rubbish. I had a household to make the most posh of them all. Soon, under my supervision, the Hurst house was running tip-top. It rivals Buckingham Palace, if I dare toot my own horn. It rivals Buckingham Palace, if I dare toot my own horn. Within a week, I put an end to any bantering that was allowed to go on from the staff. Within a week, I put an end to any bantering that was allowed to. Within a week, the staff was put in its proper no banter place. Within a week, the staff was put in its proper no banter place. The accounts were made to order. The below par food was thrown out, the decor was modernized, and any cheeky fellows were swiftly removed from employment. The accounts were made to order. Within a week, the staff were The accounts were made to order, the below par food was thrown out, the decor was modernized, and any cheeky fellows were swiftly removed from employment. The silver would be safe within the iron grip of my fist. The silver would be safe within the iron grip of my fist. The butler is the dictator of the household, and I would ensure my rule was absolute. I hired a few of my mates from back home to assist in carrying out the daily duties, and soon it was all smooth sailing, for a while anyway. I hired a few of my mates from back home to assist in carrying out the daily duties, and soon it was all smooth sailing. I'll admit, Mr. Hurst's children took some getting used to. Oh, the young ones were smart enough to bugger off when I was moving, but there was the firstborn son who was a discouraging encounter. He was daft, to put it lightly, but alongside dull, he proved to be a real wanker. Being the heir to the fortune, his entitlement knew no bounds. Winning this young bloke over took some time. Thankfully, I love a good hunt. One good adventure with rifles in our hands, and the boy knew I was no melt. He was bloody ecstatic when I downed a 300-point elk. People say that you squeeze the trigger, but that's not fact. You pull the trigger slowly, allowing yourself to be surprised when the firearm goes off. All the while, you keep the crosshairs on target, and you get your kill, so long as you place the crosshairs in the right place. People who don't normally hunt will place the crosshairs in the wrong spot, and will thus miss their opportunity for a kill. Many men's instinct will have them wanting to shoot the head or heart or some such nonsense. Shoot the head or heart. Many men's instincts will have them wanting to shoot the head or heart or some such nonsense. These targets are far too small to be overly successful. Successful, yeah. The reality is, a vital lung shot is what's needed to take down an elk. The trained hunter knows the shot to take is the double lung shot. It offers the hunter the best opportunity for taking down the elk quickly. An elk's lungs also provide the largest target, creating the smallest opportunity for failure. Once the lungs collapse, the animal will be unable to travel a far distance before it falls. Never again to stand. That's not necessary. Once the lungs collapse, the animal will be unable to travel a far distance before it falls. The fall is quite final. With the young chap enthralled with my hunting skills, I had a new best friend and ally in the Hearst household. With the young chap enthralled with my hunting skills, I had a new ally in the Hearst household. Although none would be as great an ally as Mrs. Hearst. That lady is a bird. I love my work. I take great pride in every soiree, dinner, ball, or gala that is held and carried out with expert precision. I live to please, and Milady's smile told me she was quite satisfied. Of course she wasn't a true noble woman, and therefore not entitled to the title of Milady, but I called her such just the same. It seemed to tickle her amusement, and oh, how I was melted at her smile. And oh, how I melt. Her beautiful dainty figure was the embodiment of elegance as she glided around the estate. Her happiness was what brought me joy as I carried out my duties. At every social encounter I could be found leaning against the door, listening to the melody of her ladyship's laughter alongside the bland chuckles of her constituents. I'd lean against the parlor door. No, if I spelled parlor the other way, then I have to spell it that way again. The proper English way. Parlor. Soaking in the melodies of her voice, until the click-clack of heels on the marble floor drove me back to my duties. Of course, Mr. Hearst always came first. He was the man of the house, and as such I was devoted to him. He was a proper master through and through. Him a business man. I did all I could to ensure nothing impeded his work. Dare I say, his work went on marvelously, thanks to me. The first bit of focus was his caffeine intake. Mr. Hearst thrived on coffee, but he never stopped drinking it. In order to ensure he wasn't too jittery and wasn't constantly traveling back and forth to the loo, I had to curb his drinking habits. Now, Mr. Hearst was a strong, simple man. Now, Mr. Hearst was a strong, simple man, and he liked his coffee much the same way. He always took it black. The first bit of focus was his caffeine intake. Mr. Hearst thrived on coffee, but he never stopped drinking it. In order to ensure he wasn't too jittery and wasn't constantly traveling back and forth to the loo, I had to curb his drinking habits. Now, Mr. Hearst was a strong, simple man, and he liked his coffee much the same way. He always took it black without a drop of sweetness. Even so, the cups averaged around 95 milligrams. Each cup averaged 95 milligrams of caffeine. Now, anything or 400 milligrams, and Mr. Hearst was liable to get shaky. I kept him Mr. Hearst was accustomed to drinking coffee. I should get into first way. First bit of coffee was his caffeine intake, Mr. Hearst, but he never stopped drinking it. In order to ensure he wasn't too jittery and wasn't constantly traveling back and forth to the loo, I had to curb his drinking habits. Now, Mr. Hearst was a strong, simple man, and he liked his coffee much the same way. He always took it black without a drop of sweetness. Each cup averaged 95 milligrams of caffeine. Now, anything over 400 milligrams of Mr. Hurst. Now, Mr. Hurst is accustomed to drinking coffee as he rose at 5 a.m., then again with breakfast at 7. He then takes another cup at 10, 2, 4, and his final cup as he wraps up the workday around 7 p.m. After that, he's drinking scotch. Like a true man. So, how'd I change his habits? Simple. I switched his 10 and 7 p.m. coffee to decaf without his knowledge. Did he ever suspect anything? Of course not. Mr. Hurst a gentleman on the go. He more inhales his coffee than ever actually drinking it, slushing the liquid back before jumping on a conference call with China or walking into a board meeting. He slushes the liquid back before. I'd bet my last 2 pence that the hot dark liquid rarely even touches his tongue. No, sometimes you have to do what's best for your master without them even knowing what you're doing. Sometimes you have to do what's best for your master without them ever knowing you've done it. No, sometimes you have to do what's best for your master without them ever knowing you've done it. That's what sets apart the good butlers from the truly great butlers. To forever serve your master, his family, and do whatever needs to be done. Whoop. There we go. Whew, that was fast. Well, that's what that key does, guys. Gone here. Gone here. Gone here. Gone here. Gone here. Oh, my goodness. Goodness gracious me. Yes, I carried Mr. Hurst's bags, made sure his shoes were polished, that he was always on time, and kept He doesn't do those things, though. Other butlers, well, not other butlers, other servants do those. Peak of productivity we all must be. It's maintaining peak productivity that is truly difficult. To that end, I lend him in... To that end, I assist him in meditation, yoga, and hold his phone when it's time for him to unwind. It's incredibly important that your master be allowed time to decompress and not be bothered. That being said, there are times when you must take his phone away and stand at the door for hours while he meditates. Keep the riffraff businessmen from disturbing his much-needed stress relief. I am the doorkeeper, and I keep... I am the gatekeeper, and I keep the riffraff businessmen from disturbing his much-needed stress relief. As there are so many business meetings, we, of course, are often taking the jet, gallivanting around the world. This is one of the greatest perks of being a butler. You get to travel, see sights you've only read of, and enjoy all manner of exotic cuisine. Of course, it did mean... Of course, it does mean long stretches without seeing the rest of the Hearst clan. I, as the loyal butler, of course, miss my good chap. I, as the loyal butler, of course, missed the children dearly. I, as the loyal butler, of course, missed the children dearly whenever we're away, especially the young master who I've grown so close to. And of course, there was Mrs. Hurst. And of course... Ah, dang it, I keep hitting the wrong key. And of course, there's Mrs. Hurst. Not seeing her is tantamount to torture. Her smile, smart eyes, sharp heels, and the legs those heels support are all missed. The smell of her Armani Code Absolute gold perfume lingers upon one of my handkerchiefs. And handkerchiefs. The scent gives me some reprieve from my longing. Still, I think Mr. Hurst took the absence of his wife the hardest. In fact, he took being away from the physical touch of Mrs. Hurst so hard that he requires he takes being away from the physical touch of Mrs. Hurst so hard that he often seeks the affection from other less desirable women. Oh, they're by no means your typical street trash. They wear expensive jewelry, clothes, and are always done up in Hollywood movie star fashion. No man could ask for better arm candy. No man could find better arm candy. Mr. Hurst's money only buys the best. Mr. Hurst's money only buys the best. But at the end of the day, the best escort is still a slut. I knew that, even if Mr. Hurst didn't. Which is why I wasn't surprised when I got a phone call from a Miss Elizabeth. She was an escort from New York who got a little too attached to Mr. Hurst. Being the businessman that he was, he immediately broke things off with her. Now this slighted girl was messaging me alongside sending a stream of photos depicting herself and Mr. Hurst in several Usually I'd simply pay the young woman off. As the butler, it was my job to deal with such things. It's not like she was the first woman to blackmail Mr. Hurst. $100,000 or two was simply $100,000 or two is a simple drop in the bucket. I'd pay, have them sign Usually I'd simply pay the young women off. As the butler, it was my job to deal with such things. It's not like she was the first woman to blackmail Mr. Hurst. $100,000 or two is a simple $100,000 or two is a simple drop in the bucket. I often pay, then have them sign an ironclad contract saying if they ever breathed a word of their relationship with Mr. Hurst after accepting the money, we'd own them and send them to a Russian coal mine to the end of their days. Unfortunately, the young woman was Twitter painted. She didn't want money, she wanted Mr. Hurst. She wanted him to leave his family in the lurch and gallivant around the world with him. In my humble opinion, she was bloody bullocks off her trolley. My humble opinion, she was bloody bullocks off her trolley, she was. Thinking that Mr. Hurst would leave his perfect wife for the likes of her, a dolled-up gal who underneath all that makeup was still a common streetwalker. No, sir. She was not in her right mind. She was trash. I tried to reason with her, but she simply wouldn't take no for an answer. After hours of getting nowhere, I took a long sigh, a shot of brandy, and went about executing the only option I'd had. I went about executing the only option I had left. I couldn't let her ruin this family. Seeing those photos would likely kill Mrs. Hurst, and the humiliation alone would ensure humiliation alone would ensure she could never show her face to any respectable establishment. No, I had to deal with this quietly. After all, I'm the family butler. I told her Mr. Hurst would meet. I told Miss Elizabeth. I told Miss Elizabeth that Mr. Hurst would meet on the far side of his estate, in the woods next to the old shack. In the woods. Far side of his estate in the woods. It would be cold, so I told her to dress warmly. Finally, I told her the most important thing of all, to wear that black fur coat I thought her so fetching in. There I was, the same hunting canopy that me and the young master had sat in years ago upon our first excursion. A sign in my rifle. There I was, in the same hunting canopy that me and the young master sat in years ago on our first excursion. I sighted my rifle. I sighted my rifle with a distinct click at every turn. The burnt bronze color of the stock looked bright in the daylight. The cold metal of the bolt felt good against my warm body. The cold metal felt good against my cold metal felt good against my body. That wouldn't stop heating up. The cold metal felt good against my body, against my flesh. The cold metal felt good against my flesh. That for some reason wouldn't stop heating up. The cold metal felt good against my flesh. That for some reason wouldn't stop heating up. I pulled the bolt back and forward, loading the bullet into its proper place. 2,500. 2,500 was incredibly expensive for a rifle, but it wasn't cheap either. The Browning X-Bolt Mountain Pro tungsten was exactly what I needed it to be, dependable and accurate. There weren't many ways this bolt action could go wrong. Could fail. There weren't many ways this bolt action could fail. My body went numb as I saw Miss Elizabeth walking among the trees, wearing her fur coat. The dark black coat that had her looking just enough like an animal for proper deniability. That dark black coat had her looking just enough like an animal for proper deniability. After this, I'd call the authorities and have her taken to a morgue. Of course, this would be written off as an accident. Of course, this would be written off as a hunting accident, and there wouldn't be any real repercussions. A simple bribe or two would keep the hunting accident, a simple bribe or two would keep the incident out of the news, and any inspectors who asked why she was there would simply be told that this person was trespassing. She had no business there and was clearly stalking about the place up to no good. A search of her phone records would find no suspicious messages or any hint of a picture involving her and Mr. Hurst. A search of her phone records would find no suspicious messages or any hint of pictures involving her and Mr. Hurst. Any photos, since we already said pictures, let's use photos. Any photos among the furnishings at her apartment would find their way into a shredder. It's amazing what the right amount of money in the right hands will do. Now I still needed to make the shot look like an accident. A head or heart shot was too obvious a placement. No, just like the moose, when killing a person on accident, the place to aim was the lungs. The center of the lungs rests between the third and fourth rib, about 5 inches below the base of Miss Elizabeth's neck. Miss Elizabeth, ha! That was too proper for us. I feel like that's not long enough. About 7 inches below the base of Miss Elizabeth's neck. Miss Elizabeth, ha, that name was too proper for a slutty tramp like her. I'm sure her family and friends never used such a dignified name. They likely called her Liz, the hussy. Just like hunting anything, hunting a sex worker takes time and patience. I had to wait for her to turn sideways just right. Sideways just right. I had to wait for her to turn sideways just right so the bullet would travel between her ribs, through both her lungs, along with a bunch of other important stuff in the middle of her torso, and exit out the other side. There would be no doubt that this single shot would result in her death. As she turned just right, I slowly pulled back the metal trigger while releasing my breath in a calm, slow manner. When the bullet exited the barrel, it was as much a surprise to me as it was to that corner girl, Liz. It was as much a surprise to me as it was to that prostitute, Liz. Coming to my feet, I smiled. At this moment, the family was indoors. I smiled. In long, labored heaves, her breath, her chest stopped moving. If she screamed, I didn't hear it. In long labored heaves, her chest stopped moving. In long labored heaves, her perky chest stopped moving. If she screamed, I didn't hear it. Coming to my feet, I smiled. I smiled. At this moment, the family was indoors. In the warmth of the mansion, children playing by the fire, Mr. and Mrs. Hurst snuggling together on the recliner. None of them had any idea what I had just done to keep this family intact. But they didn't need to know. I was happy to serve them. Coming to my feet, I smiled. At this moment, the family was indoors in the warmth of the mansion, children playing by the fire. Mr. and Mrs. Hurst snuggling. Mr. and Mrs. Hurst snuggled together on the recliner. None of them idea what I had just done to keep this family intact. And they never will. They don't need to know. I'm happy to serve them. I make them happy, and through their happiness, I inhale pleasure. I'd kill any number of tramps to keep this family together, happily living the life of luxury and bliss. That's my job, after all. I am the butler. I'm Butler Benson Belvedere. The end. By Arthur Altman. Woo! What do you think of that, guys? It's a good ending, right? I think so. Well, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you like the short story and you kind of like the way that my brain works as I get going. As we continue to make these, feel free to share them with others. And then, as always, comment. Let me know how you think I need to change things or make the story better. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.